Like any other item you buy at the grocery store, the price of dairy products like milk and cheese can fluctuate with the market. But what happens to the price of a gallon of milk when a dairy producing state produces more or less milk than expected?
I mean, we make 14% of the country's total milk supply. I often show folks a graph of the top five milk producing states in the US. And when I do, it's Wisconsin and California. I think Wisconsin definitely does show a indicator or potential barometer of what's happening on the national level.
Leonard Polzin is the Dairy Markets and Policy Outreach Specialist for University of Wisconsin-Madison. He says distributing competitively and fairly priced dairy products to store shelves requires a balancing act.
It's difficult to say very definitively that, like, hey, we get this big, great yield. We're doing awesome producing milk this year. Some other place isn't. What is that going to do to national supply? I think there's a lot of balancing that happens in between those two things. One of the things that makes dairy a bit unique in the way in which supply and demand clears markets and interacts within a market is because where if you say corn, for example, you have a really big bumper crop in one area, right? Does that then absorb some demand in other areas? It very well could. Milk's a little bit different in that it's not as cut and dry just by a function of the original characteristics of it, perishability, the continual process, all of these things.
The percentage of how much milk is being sold as fluid milk versus the amount being used to create other dairy products like butter is another factor to consider when you're looking at dairy prices as a whole.
One thing interesting that kind of underpins all of milk and milk pricing is something called the federal order system. When it was initially established, the idea was because of this perishability issue, right? And because originally there was a lot of regionality influence on pricing and product that was made out of the milk, right? Which one has more value in the marketplace? The cheddar or the butter? The cheddar, right? Well, that means that person who's selling their milk into that market then would be able to get a higher milk price, right, than the person who's selling their milk that's going into making butter. What federal milk marketing orders do is provide a consistent framework for testing that milk for each and every producer to make sure that they're getting paid the appropriate amount for the components that they're producing.
Federal milk orders help keep prices competitive for both producers and buyers, which can mean consumers experience less fluctuations at the checkout line. But if farmers want their products lining store shelves and ending up in your cart, they need to gain an edge.
So the market does not provide this inherent level of profitability, right? The way in which producers generate that profit in a commodity system is by gaining an edge. That's kind of the large underlying trend, not only in Wisconsin, but across the industry. And honestly, a lot of it is the byproduct of the system in which we're operating in. And a lot of times the way that that's manifested itself within the agricultural industry is through different technological innovations and through expansion, right? So as we expand and as farm size increases, we get increasingly operationally efficient, right? We're able to spread out our overhead costs more. The amount of people that it takes to tend to one individual animal, right? That decreases, right? So one person can tend to more animals, and our animals can get increasingly efficient. Every single year, we set new records as to the amount of pounds of production per cow that we see, right? Which means that we're getting better and better and better at managing these animals and making sure that they're well fed, well taken care of, very comfortable, very productive animals.